Well, how do you know when you've had too much rain? Well, let me tell you, one way is if your pond liner starts to literally float. And what I'm talking about here in this particular water garden, this liner began to float in the water garden, and that's with water on top of it. Now, I wouldn't have thought it would ever have happened, but we've been hearing some cases of that this spring, obviously for too much rain. Part of the problem here, though, is in our still water area with the heavy clay soil, obviously we're making almost a concrete pond when we dig it to start with. But also, to add to the problem, with the slope on this property, the water runs right to the liner and then goes down underneath it, under the liner, and then as the water builds up under it, sure enough, it pushes the liner up and you eventually see it sticking through the water that's on top of it. Now, the same thing happened at the studio gardens in the Garden Railroad. The only difference is we had a prefabricated liner. Same thing again, water ran underneath it, and this one literally floated out of the ground. So there's a couple of things that you can do to start with to try to correct this problem. At the studio garden, Alan and some of the volunteers put in a French drain, and they just got some pipe with holes in it, and that way the water goes through, drains out. And what they've done is underneath the liner, and we chose to put back in another liner, not the prefabricated one, because it's a little bit easier to work with. But what we did, we put 2 times the amount of gravel around this as far as the diameter of the pipe. And that way when the water drains down into this, it goes out through the gravel, and then we have an opening out the other end of the garden railway. So we've corrected that problem. That would also be nice to do here, but to do that, we would have to go on the lower end. That would put water towards the home, and we'd have to dig an awful lot more and go deeper than the pond is. So we're going to take another shortcut, and with that shortcut, what we did is dig a hole about 2 feet deep, and we put in some gravel. And then we added a little bit more gravel in the slope where the water will hopefully drain into that gravel and stay there long enough to drain away. Now obviously with the monsoon rains of spring, that won't be easy to do. Then we've put down a little bit of weed barrier to help give us a little bit of softness when we put the liner back on so we don't poke any holes with the gravel, and also to keep from any silt or settlement on the gravel. Now, as we were pulling the liner out, we found another problem, and we're going to take care of that now. Well, it looks like mice had been chewing on the liner when it was in the pond, up hopefully above the water line, but just in case, we're going to go ahead and patch this hole here, and you can see the little nibble marks. Now, it's something to remember that anytime you spring a leak, usually at your garden supply centers that carry water garden products will carry patching materials, and this one just seems to be a sticky rubber material on both sides. And the first thing you want to do is clean it off a little bit with rubbing alcohol, and then if you need to get a little bit of good contact, you can sand it down. Ours seems to be pretty rough, and we've already patched one side so you can see the sticky material there. But we'll just go ahead and lay that over, and then a good thing would be to just rub it to get contact, and then we'll cut that off, peel it, and we'll be ready to go. And then we're going to go ahead and lay the liner in and see hopefully if there's any more holes, and we'll get back with you in just a minute. Well, we got the liner back in place without any major difficulties, and so far it looks like there are no added surprises as far as any more holes. So now what we'll do is just add some more rocks around the liner to cover it up for our copping material. And of course the rocks help keep the sunlight off of the liner from breaking down too quick. And we'll fill a few more in on the waterfalls, add our fish and plants, and we should be in business. Now, for a little bit of extra security, what we did is we took the clay from the inside of the pond where we were digging to fill the rocks, and we compressed it along this edge right here, again to help divert the water from going under the liner. Then with the extra compost and topsoil and things that we've brought in, we've raised up an area here as well as on the other side where we'll put in some annual color. And our purpose here again is if we get too much of a rush of water on the slope, that these planting beds will then divert the water again away from the water garden. So again, hopefully all of these things will help correct the problem without going to that extra trouble of putting the French drain in. Now, obviously this is a good lesson to tell you that those are the types of things you need to think about ahead of time, especially if you have heavy clay soil. So don't forget about it. And if the monsoon weather has caused this kind of problem on your water garden, well, hopefully you've picked up a few pointers today to help you out.